Hey everyone, and welcome to the Doctors of Running Virtual Roundtable, where we three, at the moment two, doctors of physical therapy, discuss the art and science on what we put on our feet. On the docket today, we have the Mizuno Wave Horizon 4. Nathan cannot join us today because he is the only dad and husband of the group, so he has some other duties he had to attend to, so he'll be joining us again next week. He's also not a stability guy. This is a stability shoe, so he has some thoughts on it, but it's appropriate, right? So let's start with, we're thinking of you, Nathan. Let's start with some quick specs on this. So for a men's size 9, we're going to measure this live too. Men's size 9 is a 11.3 ounces with a 10 millimeter drop. Women's size, their standard size, which I think is size 7, I should know this, is 9.9 ounces. The upper is a Aero Hug and Aero Mesh upper, which does a really good job of being fairly breathable and locking the foot down super well. The outsole is an X10 carbon rubber, so it's super durable. Again, as mentioned, there's a 10 millimeter drop. We don't have stack measurements, correct, David? Did you get those?
Not that I know of, no.
Yeah, so we don't have that. We're in the process of investing in some devices to allow us to do that, just to double check this. And then the sole, the midsole, is a combination of a couple things. Mizuno's new material, the X-Pop. They have another cool material that's coming out soon that we'll talk about in a month or so that we're excited for. There's a combination here of a Euphoric and a Euphoric X midsole. This is one of the new Mizuno shoes that does not have a wave plate in it. The Mizuno Wave in this plate, instead of being a plate, is actually a setup between the dual because there's 3 different materials. Between the different materials, it's set up to create essentially a wedge, which you can see just a little bit, that goes throughout the length of the shoe. And this is a high stability. This is marketed as a high stability shoe, but there is no formal post here. They do it differently through the setup of the materials to create basically a wedge, which is different than a post. Throughout the length of the shoe. Although you could argue it's a somewhat of a post. Not really, because it's not a separate material. It's a combination of 2 materials. So we're getting super technical here. We need to have another expansion of that term. So yeah, David, what are your thoughts on this shoe? Unless you want to do the magic weigh-in right now. And I might actually grab my scale as well.
Okay. Well, in the spirit of specifications and things like that, I'll do the live weigh-in right now. Let me get it here. Let's get it all set up. I'll move my mouse out of the way.
It's better.
Power is on. So I'm a size 9.5 for our viewers. So I'm going to put it on right now. Looks like we are weighing in at 11.1 ounces for a size 9.5 men's.
Wow, so maybe lighter than the expected weight, because their weight is for a size 9, size 9 usually.
Size 9.
As far as we know. I'm a size 10, so I'm going to weigh mine, and I have 11.8 ounces.
Yeah.
And a half size up, so that's interesting. That is always interesting. I wish I'd taken the time to look at how much there's a weight difference between different sizes, but yeah, so we got 11.1 for size 9.5, 11.8 ounces for size 10. And then we'll have to bug Nathan later about what having him remeasure is, because he's the only size 9 of the group. It's the lucky sample size. So, yeah. David, what are your thoughts on the shoe?
I actually am a big fan. I think it's a very interesting shoe because we start to move away from posting, and we'll get more into that later. But I think the idea of creating a stable shoe, but a dynamically stable shoe that changes the way that it reacts based on the loads put upon it, is a very interesting idea, and one that I think this shoe implements relatively well. And so, like how you were mentioning earlier with the wedge, you can see there's definitely a medial sole flare on there, but there's also a lateral one too. And the medial one's raised just slightly up, so it almost creates this wider platform that you're landing upon. And then if you have any of that medial lateral deviation in that midfoot, you almost like sink into this platform, and it helps guide you almost without locking any portion of the foot out in any way or trying to necessarily limit motion. It seems to be more of a facilitation of motion, which is something that I think is really interesting.
We'll touch on that just
overall.
the stability. But yeah, go for it.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm just touching the surface here.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's great. I mean, this thing is a workhorse in every aspect of the word. I mean, both of us said in the review online that this thing's a tank.
It is.
It could go through several world wars and come out okay. So
Yeah.
it's it is very, very durable. There is no concerns here. I think the big thing for me is weight. I think it is a little on the heavy side. We'll go into that more later. But overall, I mean, I do like the shoe. I think the fit is also amazing, and I will go into that more, I think, as well. But overall, I'm very, very pleased with it.
Yeah, it's a good shoe. I agree with you on all those points where it is definitely a workhorse shoe. It's a big shoe, right? It's not as necessarily as big as some of the other like maximal competitors out there, but it's definitely a hefty shoe. And this one gets an award for durability because, again, as David and Nathan have mentioned many times, I am the destroyer of the group, and I have probably like 300 to 400 miles on these, including a ton of walking because this has become my primary like work shoe in the clinic. And just looking like, Dan, do you see not much in wear on that lateral heel? So like that's amazing. I don't think I've ever had a shoe that's been able to do that because I chew through them, and so I'm very impressed. It's really held up well. The stability is very interesting, and as David mentioned, no post, right? So when I first put these on, it was, as that's becoming more normal, so less posts, more of these different intricate methods. So Mizuno uses, some sole flare on both sides, so bilaterally. They've got a wedge in there. They've got three different midsole material setups to be able to create a stable ride without an aggressive post. So if you're looking for that really aggressive push into your arch, you're not going to get this with that shoe. But if you're looking for a stable shoe that will keep you going for long miles, I can definitely tell a difference, especially when I get into longer miles, between a neutral and a stability shoe. And I can definitely tell it's a stability shoe. When you first put it on, you're going to feel your foot pushed a little bit in one direction, but you're not going to get that aggressive push into your arch. So it's different, especially being a more maximal stability shoe. I shouldn't say maximal, a high stability shoe. So it's interesting. The X-Pop, it takes a little bit to feel that, right? Because the shoe it is very heavy. It takes a little bit to get used to it. Once you get it going, it is fine. You'll get that balance, but those initial miles are like, oh my gosh, my hip flexors are killing me. And then you get over it. So I tend to like lightweight trainers, and I was like, okay, I got to get miles in these. And it really started to grow on me. Like, I wear this pretty much every day as a work shoe, as it's been retired, even though it's doing fine. Sole still feels great. Like the cushioning's still there. Even though, because the wave plate is what made Mizuno unique and especially durable too. Even though it's not there, the sole is still holding up super well. The transition is also pretty smooth. It doesn't have as much heel bevel as maybe say other companies, but it's definitely, Mizuno's always been pretty decent at that. But yeah, it compresses really nicely, and so landing's pretty good. The toe off is super smooth. There's a good amount of flexibility for a maximal stability shoe and like a thickly cushioned shoe. So it's great. Like it's got a smooth ride, which is one of the names of the technologies they use to supposedly make that anatomic flex screws a smooth ride. So that was not intended. Upper is really comfortable. There is a thick heel counter in here that I never felt because there's so much cushioning around the upper. It's pretty durable too. I don't have, again, no, other than a bunch of cat hair on mine, I don't have really any wear issues. It does fit a little snug when you first put it on, but the thing stretches out super well, and there's a amount of room. And it really does accommodate super well and does hold the foot down really well. One of the few shoes I didn't have to lace lock, right? I didn't have to do that at all, and it still held me super well through all the miles. So, yeah, Mizuno, really, really impressed that you could create such a stable shoe without posting, use some other methods, and it's still hefty. Like that's, I think, both of our comments is like, I think you can drop some weight off of this, but a great shoe. And I mean, like it's a tank. You can't break it down. It holds on super well.
Definitely.
Yeah, I almost didn't notice the 10 millimeter drop too. It's like everything just it's such a smooth shoe that it does a great job of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback off of that, yeah, great job on the fluidity of things. I think the wave foam, the way it facilitates the motion and guides the motion is just so great. It's almost like a high stability shoe that feels like a neutral shoe, and it kind of blows your mind a little bit. It doesn't feel like a high stability shoe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it very much is.
Definitely.
And so it's just insane. And I think the upper is so great, and one of the best uppers I've probably put on. It's not super wide anywhere. I would like to call it like lightly snug.
Yeah.
Like it just holds it so nicely, your foot. And I think it's very true to size. Length's fine, width is fine. It's not like it's narrow. It definitely has a little bit of space in there.
Yeah.
And that heel is maybe a little on the wide side, but I mean, you have so much cushion, like you had mentioned, the collar and the counter there, it does not really come into play at all. It's just such a comfy shoe.
Right.
Like in terms of sitting in it, it's like, this is what I picture the robe by the fireplace, like in terms of a running shoe, on how it feels.
One of the comments is the Arrow Hug, which I believe is like, especially around the midfoot, does actually work. I can't tell the number of companies that say, oh, we have this like nice midfoot lockdown and your foot still moves all over the place and I still got to lace lock the shoe. This actually works super well in the shoe, and it, like, you can't even see it. Doesn't look too massive, but it really helps keep your foot secure. I guess you can't see it, right? So
yeah, you can kind of see it.
Yeah, but it does a good job of walking the foot down well without you noticing it. Like I didn't notice it, and I had to remind myself, like, oh, I didn't need to lace lock this shoe. I'm secure in it and not feeling compressed. So yeah, good job on like all around on the shoe. We were very impressed. Just kind of lighten it down a little bit. That's about it.
I think the X-Pop's pretty great too. I know that's kind of their big thing right now moving forward with this new foam wave. And this one's kind of planted right where that rear foot kind of goes into the midfoot to forefoot transition.
Yeah.
And it's that PU-based foam. And it's almost like you drop into this nice, responsive, but still plush foam. And so for being a shoe that's over 11 ounces, you can still run pretty fast in it.
You can.
It's kind of weird. Like, it is mind-boggling because I've had several miles under 6 minutes here on regular runs that you're just kind of in rhythm and you don't notice how fast you're going. If anything, you feel like you're going much slower than what you're actually going.
I am very impressed still that you took it under 6 minute pace. This is not a shoe that I ever reached for when I was going to do anything fast. It is a good shoe.
Well, yeah, and
I would not suggest it for trying to do all out speed. It will get you through a marathon or whatever race distance you want. It may not be as fast as you want, but it will definitely. It's not meant as a speed day shoe. So that should speak more to David's abilities as being able to take a shoe like this under that pace. So, but that is not. It's not a racing shoe for sure. It is a trainer. Although super awesome as a walking shoe as well. Like
definitely.
I think David and I have both done this where we've worn it like for like long hours, like 10, 12 plus hours in clinic, and walked away and feel great, which is, can't say that about a lot of shoes. So for those looking for a solid like double shoe that doubles as a nice walking shoe or standing shoe, this is awesome. It does a great job of, like, again, no aggressive post, no irritation there, but just being smooth, comfortable. Hey, I can't ask for much more. Yeah. David, any other comments on that, on the shoe in general?
Let me think about it. We got the fit.
Yeah.
Outsole's a tank. Midsole's awesome.
My other comment, I'm impressed with Mizuno for moving away from the wave plate. It's not that I don't like the wave plate.
Yeah.
I think it has its purpose in certain shoes. But a lot of times, in my experience, the wave plate could cause a lot of stiffness in the heel, which for some people works great. For me, on certain days, I love that because, like, the Wave Rider, right, worked as a great shoe for me as somebody who needs a little stability, and I was fine in it. Sometimes it could be a little harsh, and it's amazing to watch Mizuno away from it, and Mizuno actually try some stuff without it, and it still works. This is super smooth. Like, the heel tread, like the landing, all this stuff, super, like, smooth like butter. So Mizuno, like, I appreciate you guys are flexible and going, hey, let's try some things, because not everybody does that, right? To be flexible like that is it's cool. Watch you guys do that. So kudos.
Yeah, definitely. I like the word flexible there because that's exactly what I think of, because I love the Mizuno Wave Rider. That was my daily trainer of the year last year.
Yeah.
But it's a very different shoe.
Yeah, very different.
And it's
Even
a lot more rigid in the heel, and that transition, although still very fluid, it's a lot more, I'll say, I don't want to say stable, but yeah, it's a lot more rigid in that heel.
Yeah.
And that transition and that drops felt a little more. Whereas this one, you almost like sink into it a little bit without feeling like you're, like, sinking's not a good word.
Right, because this isn't
like
this is not a
like you're
soft shoe.
transitioning nicely. Yeah.
Right. It's not a soft
Yeah, it's not
shoe.
super soft either.
It's kind of like right in that middle ground where it's not bone crushing firm, but it's not super soft. It's just like you're like Goldilocks, just right between the two of them. At least for us, right? Because that every person's going to interpret that differently, but based on everything.
Very true.
Yeah, but totally agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably all the comments I have to say regarding just the build of the shoe. I mean, I think we'll go into a lot more detail later.
Yeah.
But
in the current state of the industry is making shoes lighter and lighter, and they are by far less and less durable. So this is definitely different if you're looking for a durable, like dependable shoe that's going to last you a while. This is definitely it. That provides some stability and some new methods. So good job. Do we want to hit those fan questions?
Let's do it.
All right.
So actually, our first fan question, it's kind of skewed because this actually comes from our boy Nathan Brown. And I think it's a great question and one
he's not here, so it technically counts. It's like it technically counts.
Yeah.
He's okay.
So he just wants to know our thoughts on the stability mechanisms of this shoe and whether or not the transition away from a traditional posting model is a good thing overall, whether it be from Mizuno or for the shoe industry as a whole.
My opinion on that is I don't think it's bad. I don't think posts are necessarily bad. I hope that's not how I come across in some of the articles that we write about, different method stability. It's just that it's good to have options. That's the key, because every person, their mechanics are going to be totally different, and people are going to find different things that work for them. Some people will find that based on the mechanics of their foot, a post works really, really well for them. Some people love that feeling of having that just pressed, like gently supporting into the arch or whatever part of their foot. Other people that still might need stability don't like that. So the great thing about the industry now is that there are options. I don't think we should necessarily move away from plates or from posts necessarily, but I think we should look at alternative methods of creating stability. I don't think you're going to create something that's going to work for everyone, but this is nice because it definitely may work for a different population. So people who don't like those like high stability shoes or motion control shoes that are super aggressive and have that huge thing pushing into you, this is definitely worth looking into. And again, it's not bad to have different things. It's better to have that variety so people have things that work for them. It's the same that we've talked about this with the past with like the plated shoes, right? That, there's no such thing as a best shoe for the population. It's finding what works for you. And this is another great option. And right, because again, it's like a wedge, but it's not an aggressive wedge where you can't move. It's still using the foam. There's a good amount of it, right? There's some sole flare. It's a wider base. It's a good, all these mechanisms that kind of work together to do this instead of just saying, oh, it's posted, so that's it. Which there are plenty of unstable posted shoes, right? So if you have a super soft midsole and you put a post in there that's also it's like, dude, your foot's still moving all over the place and it doesn't feel like it. This feels comfortably stable in a good way. So I think it's a good thing that people are trying new options. I hope they don't get rid of all of them because, different things work for different people. What do you think?
And just to go off of that, I agree completely. I think different things work for different people, and the rigidity of a post as well in a certain portion of the foot, whether it be a rear foot, midfoot, or forefoot posting, people are going to respond differently and they're going to like the ride differently for each shoe. I know for you tend to like more of that forefoot stability, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And so that might be very different where someone, but a lot of the shoes, like that real old model of just like post up that navicular and give it that little bit of lift, control that midfoot pronation, motion control, high stability, like the old way of thinking about shoes. I think there's a time and place for it, but I think it is good that we're expanding the options here because that's not the case for everyone.
Right.
I think with posting in general, there's not enough research out there to show its true effect on quote unquote limiting motion in any way. And I think that in the old model of things too, you would look at the rear foot and you would say, oh, is it everted? Is it inverted? And how is this adjusting the foot to make it, in a sagittal plane of motion, when in reality, you're never going to be in that situation. You're going to be running and you're going to be moving, and these things are dynamic. And so I love the move away from the post for the innovative reasons and for creating so much more options for people and creating this fluid network of what is a shoe. And so I think it's great that we're moving away. I do think there is a time and place. Like if you collapse like super hard on that forefoot and you're not able to control it and your toe off ends up getting all wonky because of it, maybe it is good to have a little bit more rigidity and stability in that area. But only the runner is going to know that. And you're only going to know that after wearing a couple different shoes. And so it's kind of like the Goldilocks situation. And so by expanding our horizons, unintentional plug, but I just realized that. But by expanding our horizons there, I think it's a great thing for the footwear industry as a whole. And I think the idea of a dual foam midsole is super intriguing, and it's popping up more and more. And I think it's a good thing overall.
On a side note, before I comment on some of the research, I think we should make it a point with every one of these roundtable discussions to try to use the name of the shoe as a pun at some point during the discussion, because that was good. Have we done that? Have we done that with any of the other shoes? We got to start this, because expand your horizons. That was good. I like that. That's good.
I didn't even mean to.
That's the whole thing. You'd be like, somebody gets a prize for the first one to drop a pun like that in the round table. So we'll figure that out. That'll be added, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, just on some of the research that David mentioned. So a lot of the current day research has shown that that regardless of the stability method of the post, a lot of times the foot's still going to do its own thing, right? So Ben O'Nig, who I know people that know me I reference him a lot. The shoe tends to do its own thing in terms of motion, regardless of what you put it in. However, what should be noted is there is plenty of research to show that you can affect somebody's fatigue level, right, with posts and stuff like that, depending on the person. So people that might have a little bit more foot motion there that don't have as much good control over that foot motion might benefit from a stability shoe just to help with fatigue over longer mileage, or to help a little bit with their mechanics. As doctors of physical therapy, we do have to mention that while it is nice to have a shoe to correct some of that, you should also be working on that from a strength and mobility perspective as much as possible, right? Because your own body is going to be, David gets the same thing where we have all these emails that ask oh, should I keep changing shoes? And instead of going through 40 different pairs of shoes, why don't you should optimally address your own mechanics first, and then figure out, okay, how far can I go? And then what do I need from the shoe, rather than what's the shoe I need? And then keep bouncing between shoes. Not that we don't do that, right? That's how this website started, is me doing that. But, looking for that Goldilocks shoe, not necessarily for stability,
right,
but you should address your own mechanics first and then find out what you need from the shoe, right? But should be known again, like I said, posting can certainly influence in that. We're not saying it doesn't work. We're not saying these stability methods won't work. It's just from a biomechanics standpoint, a lot of times the foot still does its own thing. So when you have somebody, let's say, not to poo-poo on any of the running stores, right? But when somebody puts you on a treadmill and they say they're doing a gait analysis on you and they're trying to influence your mechanics and stuff like that, they're probably not, to be honest. And it's really some people are using computer-based stuff and they're looking at the images, which is better. But it really, you need to find what's comfortable for you, and that's a really hard thing to figure out. A lot of times you're not going to figure that out right in a store, because a lot of shoes are now made to feel comfortable the second you put them on, and you're not going to know how it really performs until a couple miles in. So there's no definite answer on that, and I guarantee you, again, trying to set up the perfect biomechanics is not the way to go, right? And we know that from the research right now, that just you got to find what's comfortable and you got to experiment a little bit. There's no right answer. Sorry. That's what you get when you go deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole. If there's no definite answer, that's just what happens. Nathan, does that answer your question? 40 minutes later?
I think it does.
All right, good.
I think it does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a good point because I don't think.
Yeah, Regina's getting on me about not going on such long tangents. I think I failed right there. So, anyway, sorry.
I love it. I think it's fun.
All right.
But yeah, I think it's a good point that no shoe is going to quote unquote fix you, and
Right.
that the shoe is going to be this knight in shining armor that's going to do everything for you, and you're not going to have to actually strengthen any muscles or put the necessary work in to run.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. I think that's an important point. Is people don't realize that you do have to be in a certain level of shape to run. There are a good number of impact forces that happen with that. Your body needs to be prepared to do that, to do it optimally. A lot of people can get away with it, but if you really want to make sure that you stay healthy and your body can deal with those impact forces, which it can if you train it, you really got to make sure you take care of it. And there's just a little extra work involved to really do this well. And we're biased on that because we're physical therapists. So anyway.
And as a frequently injured runner myself, got to put the work in.
Yeah, that's fair.
Alrighty, well, the next question here, this is a long one, so I'll try and make it in chunks. But one thing, this is from Read, Eat, Write, Run. And so this is basically a question asking definitely more information on stability. He or she would like it compared to either the Adrenaline 18, 19, 20, so the Adrenaline series.
Right.
And or the New Balance 860s. Situation here is a wide foot men's 4E, however, pheno heel, so they lock the heel lace there. And they're looking for a shoe that they can't go zero drop, but they don't want to give Nike their money, and they have a hard time finding a shoe that works for them. And so the wide foot in the stability shoe market is kind of interesting because a lot of them deload up that midfoot and then make it kind of like a little bit more of a narrow, more rigid kind of shoe sometimes. Not the case so much now. But basically, we're looking here for just advice.
All right. That's fair.
For that shoe.
I don't know if this shoe is going to be wide enough for 4E because the Horizon, while it's a great shoe, does not come in a wide. The Inspire does. So the Inspire 16, which has if you use the knit version, has plenty of room. So that might be a better option. It also depends on where that person needs stability and how they respond to posts. So again, you could try this one. There's a good amount. It'll feel snug when you first put it on, but it will stretch for you. This isn't a traditional stability shoe, like I guess the Adrenaline is now, right? Where they got rid of the posts and now they have the guide rails there. I think from my experience having run in the newer Adrenaline as well, the guide rail on the Adrenaline is a little more aggressive than this, and it's a little bit more based in the rear foot. It doesn't seem to extend as far to the front of the foot, whereas in the Horizon, the stability definitely extends throughout the length of the shoe. So those people that need forefoot stability are going to do well if they're looking for that. Not so much, I think, in the Adrenaline. So the Adrenaline, again, they're using some new technologies to that non-posting, try to influence the movement of the foot. I think you're going to get a little bit more traditional feeling out of this versus the Adrenaline, because the Adrenaline, when you put it on, to me, it felt like a neutral shoe, and I didn't notice it until the stability until I started running. Whereas this, when I put this on, I was like, I know this is a stability shoe, but it's just comfortable and it feels good putting it on. So it's not shoving it into you, but you do know it's a stability shoe. Whereas the Adrenaline, I didn't get that. It wasn't until I started running and I'm like, oh, this is aggressive. I did not expect that. So I mean, we're biased, right? Because we work with Mizuno and not Brooks, but I would choose this one over the Adrenaline just based on that super smooth ride. And personally, I do like the slightly lower drop in the 10 millimeter, just because it makes it a little more stable. If you do need a super wide one, the Inspire and the Adrenaline are quite similar in that regard, where you can get a wide there. There's a stiffer rear foot that you will definitely notice. But again, I tend to like the Wave more than the guide rails and the Brooks. I do like the Ravenna though. The Ravenna is a good shoe, but that's not going to have nearly as much stability. And the Ravenna is going to be more, and Inspire are going to be more similar to the 860. Because the 860, the shoe that will be most comparable to this from New Balance would probably be the 940, maybe, or I haven't run in the Rubik's. I tried it on, but I don't know enough about it to really make or the Vongo to make a comment on that. The 860 is definitely less of a stability shoe. That would be more comparable to something like the Brooks Ravenna or the Mizuno Wave Inspire than, say, the Horizon, which is a little higher in stability. So, I mean, you're certainly going to get those wider fits. So if you really are sure you need that wide fit, I would probably take a look at the Inspire. There's also the stability is integrated pretty well in that shoe. Given it's not a post, it's a wave plate, but yeah, it's just they're different shoes. To answer that question again, 860 is also going to have more stability in the rear foot, but not nearly as much. The Adrenaline's going to have a lot of stability. You're not going to feel it until you run, and it's much more take your first couple steps, and it's much more in the rear foot. Whereas if you need kind of a little more gentle stability across the full length of the foot, Horizon.
I love it.
Was that on track? I don't know if
yeah, it definitely was.
Right.
You're good. You're fine.
Right.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, Matt's the stability guy of the group.
Yeah.
So if you have any stability questions, he's definitely going to be the one to go to. He loves stability shoes. That's what he thrives on. For me, I haven't run in the Adrenalines personally since high school. I don't really feel comfortable commenting on that because it has been so long now.
Right.
But from what I can actually remember, like the feel of that shoe, I think probably the Inspire is probably the closest I could think, just off of long memory here. But
yeah,
I think if we're going to compare, shoes, I think that's probably the closest that I could think of in terms of stability there. Yeah, so shall we move on to the comparison question?
Yeah, if I didn't already.
Alrighty. Oh, no, you're fine. So this one comes from our fan, Corey Harold, and he wants to know if this shoe was a Ben & Jerry ice cream flavor.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
What would it be?
Can I go first?
Go for it.
If this was a Ben & Jerry's ice cream flavor, I would say this is the New York Super Fudge Chunk. Because it's a bit of it's definitely got some heft to it, right? It's a little heavy, but it's pretty good, right? And it's definitely tough, right? It's New York. It's tough as nails. So you can't break this shit. It'll break you first. It's not gonna break. I'm just kidding. It's not gonna break you. It's a super comfortable shoe. But that's what I would choose just based on that, because like it's one of my favorite ice cream flavors, just because I love like fudge, the nuts, the white and dark chocolate. There's a ton of stuff in here to keep you going, but it's also super tough and surprisingly smooth, right? So it's like seems like there's heavy in there, but it's surprisingly smooth going down. So that would be my ice cream flavors, New York Super Fudge Chunk.
I love it.
David, what about you?
You coming in with some good answers early too.
I was actually prepared. I'm not waiting till the last second and making it up.
Actually, I've got a good one, I think. Mine's a little outside of the box, just like the last episode. So I'm going to actually go with the Tonight Dough. And here is why.
All right. I'm excited.
Now, Mizuno over the last year has shown a lot of signs of innovation and changing the way that they're making their shoes. And they've done a good job of that, I think. And whether you're looking at the North American market or the Japanese market or wherever, they're progressing with their midsoles, their foams, their plates. They're trying to make waves, quite literally, and progress.
Double points for David today on the pun level.
But they're trying to make waves. They're trying to be very relevant on the running scene, and I think they will be in the next year. And so as any up-and-coming star or even veteran star, they deserve a spot on the Tonight Show. So I think they're going to be a hot topic in the next year. And so I think the Tonight Dough is appropriate.
All right, that's a great answer. They do have some very cool stuff coming out that we can't tell you about yet, and they won't tell you either. We have an agreement with them for me not to review their Japanese shoes, even though I love those. But they're doing good on all, just because they're not available in the U.S. But even though I'm not going to comment too much on them, they're doing a good job. And it's cool to see them stay relevant, because not every company out there is staying relevant. And every company's trying, that doesn't mean they're staying relevant. And I think Mizuno is doing a good job of stepping up.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have any other closing comments or anything?
No, I think, you know, I don't think we can give this shoe a hard time for being heavy, because it's not meant as a race day shoe. It's definitely stable. It's back well. Just know that's something we would just say, hey, you could try maybe lighten up just a little bit. But that's not necessarily its purpose. It's a great shoe. As a stability guy, I did not expect to like this shoe. I was like, oh, this is going to be heavy, like what? And it's been something I reached for a variety of things. So I'm very impressed, and yeah, I'm excited to see where they take this and take their other stuff coming in. So, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, I think a lot of what makes this shoe so good in so many ways adds weight to the shoe. And so I think it's hard to say, like, you know, like cut weight here, cut weight there. I mean, I think the upper might be a little thick, but it's still super comfortable, you know?
Yeah, you could probably knock a little bit off from the upper as well.
Yeah.
So it's pretty thick, but comfortable, but pretty thick.
Yeah, and maybe even the midsole. I mean, it is pretty plush, I think. So
It is.
You might be able to cut a little bit.
They did do a good job of keeping it like still stable, though, right? So people will look at my recent review of the Saucony Hurricane, where I love the Power Run Plus, but the addition in the Hurricane made it actually like unstable for me, whereas Mizuno actually made that transition well and still kept a good stability shoe. So that might actually be have a little like reach out to a larger variety of people now that there's not aggressive posts. So yeah, I think they did a good job. Yeah, sorry not to interrupt you on that.
No, you're fine, man. Alrighty, well then, so I think we can close ourselves out then.
All right, so these are our thoughts on the art and science behind putting the Mizuno Wave Horizon 4 on your feet. Make sure to subscribe below and check out our website at doctorsofrunning.com for detailed reviews and research reports. We look forward to meeting next time, and know we do have a full multiple test review on this, and Nathan should be back next time. He's also our relative not stability guy, since David's the one who can handle anything. Nathan and I are a little more sensitive on like what we can and can't handle in terms of I just need a little stability usually, but yeah, we like to keep each other healthy. So he will be back next time with our non-stability shoe.